In the sterile quiet of a space station garden, a young botanist named P tended to her plants. Here, far from Earth, artificial sun lamps mimicked a long-lost dawn. A low hum was the station's heartbeat, the sound of the gravity field holding everything in place. But then, the hum stuttered. Soil from a planter drifted upwards in a cloud of brown confetti. Alarms blared, bathing the corridor in a pulsing red light. A synthesized voice announced, "Gravity core instability." Commander Rook's face appeared on a screen, his expression grim. "All personnel to stabilization pods." This is not a drill. But as others ran for safety, P ran in the opposite direction. She couldn't abandon her life's work, a vault containing the last precious seeds from Earth. The station shuddered violently, and the main lights died, replaced by the eerie blue glow of emergency power. She reached the vault, but a security lockdown had sealed it shut. Through the small window, she watched in horror as her seed preservation cases cracked, their contents floating aimlessly in zero-G. Just then, a small maintenance bot, Click, rolled up, beeping urgently. It held a manual override chip. Working together, they pried the door open, and P frantically gathered the floating seeds into her satchel. Rook's voice crackled over the comms. "P, report to Pod 1 immediately." But before she could answer, a deep rumble echoed through the station's spine. A destructive gravity pulse was coming. She and Click raced through corridors that were now tilting and twisting. Behind them, entire sections of the station were consumed by chaotic weightlessness. They made it to the pod bay, but the door to Pod 1 was sealed. The others were already launching, one by one, into the black. On the other side of the window, Rook pounded on the glass. He mouthed two words, "Go to the core." He pointed downward, then his own pod sealed and jettisoned into space. P was alone. The station groaned around her like a dying beast. Click, ever loyal, projected a map onto the floor. The path to the gravity core was clear. She made her choice. The last escape pod could wait. Her station needed her. She descended on a maintenance lift, plunging deep into the engineering heart of the station. The lift jolted to a stop as power failed in sections. They were forced to climb down a service shaft. Surrounded by the strange sight of reverse gravity blooms, plants torn from the gardens above, floating past them like botanical ghosts. They reached the core chamber. The door was wedged halfway open, crushed by a bent support beam. P squeezed through the gap, and Click followed. The chamber was a vast, cylindrical room. At its center, a brilliant spinning orb of contained gravity, the core flickered like a dying star. Cracks of dark energy spiderwebbed across its surface. A diagnostic console was still active. "Catastrophic failure in 47 minutes, it read. "Cause: unknown resonance." Click extended a probe and scanned the room. The resonance wasn't mechanical. It was organic, biological. P followed the scan to a dark corner of the chamber. There, attached to the core's housing, was a plant. It was beautiful, crystalline, glowing with the same unstable energy as the core itself. It wasn't a parasite, she realized. It was symbiotic, but its growth was unchecked, creating a destructive feedback loop that was tearing the station apart. Suddenly, the plant pulsed. A wave of distorted gravity washed over the chamber, lifting P off her feet and pinning her to the ceiling. Click latched onto a ground conduit to avoid being thrown. The wave passed as she fell, but the gravity was now at 30%, her descent slow and gentle. She had to stabilize the plant to stabilize the core. But how? She remembered her seeds. Opening her satchel, she saw a few had already begun to sprout, energized by the ambient radiation. An idea sparked. A single, powerful plant was causing imbalance. Perhaps a garden could create a counter-resonance, a harmony. But the chamber was bare metal. There was no soil, no structure, no light. Click beeped and projected a schematic of the station's recycler systems. Raw material. They raced to a sub-chamber filled with compressed blocks of waste. P reprogrammed the recycler to break them down into a soil-like substrate, while Click used its welding arm to cut and shape scrap metal into makeshift planters. They worked frantically as the core's flickers grew more violent. 32 minutes remained. Another gravity shift hit, this time crushing them with twice the normal force. P was slammed to her knees, crawling to move the heavy planters. Click's wheels strained against the immense pressure. When the wave passed, they hauled their work back to the main chamber, and P planted her seeds in a circle around the crystalline growth. But nothing happened. They needed a catalyst. Looking at the glowing plant, she knew what she had to do. It was the most advanced life form here. Carefully, she snipped a single tiny glowing leaf. She ground it into a powder, mixed it with water from her canteen, and sprinkled the mixture over her freshly planted seeds. For a tense moment, there was only silence. Then, a soft green light began to emanate from the soil. The seeds germinated at an impossible speed, unfurling into shoots, then leaves right before her eyes. The new plants began to emit a soft, harmonizing hum. The core's violent flickering lessened, but it wasn't enough. The diagnostic screen flashed an update, resonance dampened by 22%. Failure still imminent, 18 minutes. She needed more biomass, more life. Click rolled to a wall panel and showed a schematic of the main arboretum, 20 levels up, filled with mature plants. The elevators were dead. But Click highlighted another system, the pneumatic transport tubes used for soil and fertilizer. They rushed to the transport hub. P frantically reprogrammed the system to retrieve plant bundles from the arboretum. The system whirred to life, but a red error flashed. A tube had ruptured somewhere. They would have to guide the payload manually. They had to split up. Click would navigate the plant bundle through the maze of tubes from the control terminal, while P had to be at the receiving end in the core chamber. 12 minutes left. P sprinted back to the chamber. The cracks on the core were widening, spitting arcs of dark energy that scorched the walls. She reached the receiving chute. "Click now!" she yelled into her cum. On Click's screen, a small icon representing the plant bundle navigated a complex map of tubes, approaching the breach point. Click rerouted it through a secondary channel just in time. The bundle emerged from the chute, tumbling into a planter. P unpacked ferns, mosses, and small flowering shrubs, quickly planting them among her seedlings. The biological mass increased, and the harmonizing hum grew louder. Dampening, 41%, the console read. Still not enough, 8 minutes. The crystalline plant itself was now pulsing erratically, stressed by the new competition. Then P understood. It wasn't about competition, it was about integration. Gently, she transplanted the crystalline plant from the core's housing into the very center of her new garden. Using moist soil, she created bridges connecting its roots to the others. For a terrifying second, the plant dimmed, and the core's spin slowed to a crawl. But then, the crystalline plant glowed brighter than ever. Its energy flowed into the garden, which absorbed it, transformed it, and sent a calm, stable frequency back toward the core. The feedback loop had become a harmony loop. The cracks on the core began to seal. The dark energy retracted. The diagnostic screen finally displayed the words she'd been hoping for. Resonance stabilized. Catastrophic failure averted. Gravity returned to normal. The station's groaning ceased, replaced by the steady, healthy hum of a stable core. Exhausted, P sat among her thriving, glowing garden. Click rolled up and beeped softly. On the comms, static cleared. It was Rook. P, are you there? The station just stabilized. She smiled, looking at her handiwork. I'm here, she said. I'm in the core. And I fixed it. Days later, the crew returned to a sight beyond belief. The cold, mechanical core chamber had been transformed into a breathtaking, gravity-defying garden. Plants grew in vibrant spirals, and floating orbs of soil were tended by newly programmed bots. P had not just saved the station. She had given it a soul. She took the last earth oak seed from her satchel and planted it in the center of this new ecosystem. The station, now renamed the Gravity Garden, became a beacon of green life against the blackness of space. A testament to the fact that even in the most desolate of places, life finds a way. Thanks for watching.